Thanks, Erica. Hey, all. I'm Marvin. I'm about to help you continue where Erica left off. But first, let me tell you a little bit about me. Cool. Come on. My name is Marvin Espinoza. I'm there in yellow. And I studied economics at the University of Chicago, was a teacher for Teach for America, data scientist, a director of operations, and now I'm a student at UNC Chapel Hill's Mighty program. So now let's jump in to where we are so far. Where we left off with Erica, she helped us prepare our data. Now we're going to go ahead and aggregate our data so that we can summarize it and then analyze it. To aggregate our data, to summarize and analyze it, we have to select our data, then we have to insert a pivot table, then we have to choose our rows and columns, and we'll go over a little mini lesson on that. Then we have to select our values, then adjust our calculations, summarize our information, visualize that data, and then finally analyze it. It'll give us the ability to make charts like these that we can then analyze so that we can derive effective insights. All right, let's jump in. First, you have to select your data. I click where my data begins and I click and drag to select all of it. Great, now we have selected our data. Next step is to insert our pivot table. Once you have your data selected, you then go to the top and select Insert and select Pivot Table. Then you will come up with this screen. You'll click on Existing Workbook, and you'll have to select a particular cell in there. Click it. It pops up. You click OK. Now your pivot table is there on the left, and then to the right, you'll also see the pivot table editor. We have now inserted our pivot table. Now it's time to select our column, but first we have to determine what are dimensions, because dimensions are our rows and our columns. Now suppose I asked you the question, what type of marble do people buy most, and you have this raw data. Altogether, 100% of people bought a marble, but how much of that percentage is distributed by color? That's our first dimension, our rows. Now let's add our second dimension, size. We see the percentage of people that have bought a marble by two dimensions, color and size. Now I can see that the marble most bought was the small blue marble with 31.58% of people buying it. Now I can select my rows and columns. My rows will be dimension 1, income strand. Then the next thing I want to do is select my column dimension, my second dimension. I go over and I select sex for gender, male and female, and put that under columns. Now we see we have our male and female columns. Now let's go on and select our values. When we look at our income bracket for rows, we see that 100,000 and over is in the wrong spot. So we're going to go ahead and grab it and move it down to place it in the right spot. Now let's go ahead and select our actual values. We're going to look at our diabetes value. It has a particular structure, and its structure is ones and zeros, as we see here. This is going to determine what calculation I use in my pivot table once I select my diabetes and I move it into my values section. Once I have done that, a quick inspection of our pivot table shows us the following. The pivot table has summed our ones and zeros, but we don't want that. We want the averages of ones and zeros because that's a percentage. Look back at our pivot table editor and we see it says sum of diabetes. So we click on the little triangle and we select value field settings. Then this box comes up and we click on average and we press OK. Now we see that we have averages. However, they're in decimals. So we go up to design, click on general, and we select percentage. And now we have our percents. That's our calculation that we chose. And the way to summarize our data using income as one dimension and gender as a second dimension. So at this point, we have selected our values, adjusted our calculations, and summarized our data. Now we will finish with the last two steps of visualizing our data and analyzing our data. Now with our data that's summarized, we go over to the Insert tab. Then we go over and click on Pivot Chart, and we select the bar graph and press OK. We have quickly visualized our data. Now let's analyze. First, we see the middle income folk have diabetes. Then we see higher income folk, only men do. Then those with lower income have no diabetes. So it seems like there is a relationship between diabetes and income. But at the higher end though, only for men. That requires further investigation. That is the conclusion of our tutorial for today. As you see, we've gone through the 8 steps, and we've aggregated our data, summarized it, and analyzed it. Good work!